Good afternoon, everyone. November 17th, 12:03 Eastern Time, 9:03 West Coast Time. Welcome you into CAPRE's Scaling for the Future, How Advanced Computing Demands a New Approach to Data Center Design. Again, welcoming you all in to our webinar today, or CAPRE Scaling for the Future, How Advanced Computing Demands a New Approach to Data Center Design. So all of this information will be found on our website, capremedia.com. capremedia.com. You can follow along and view the detailed description there. CAPRE and ScaleMatrix today are teaming to present this innovative virtual session to explore the future roadmap in the data center. In early 2020, visionary NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang said this: "No server, no matter how powerful, is able to possibly process the type of application workloads that we're now looking at. In fact, the server is no longer the computing unit. The data center is a new computing unit." So again, please follow along and view the detailed description at capremedia.com, which is our website. Today's panelists will include Stefan Balaban from the Lambda Labs, Dave Driggers from Cirrascale Cloud Services, Gavin Miller, DDC Cabinet Technology, Chris Orlando from ScaleMatrix and DDC Cabinet Technology, and Tony Packaday from NVIDIA. We're very excited to have our guests today, and we appreciate their time. We're going to have two key sessions today during our webinar. Session one, building a competitive edge, advanced computing solutions in the data centers which enable them. Session two will be AI Anywhere, removing data center barriers and democratizing AI capabilities for all. So those will be the two key segments today. And again, we appreciate everyone's time, and especially our panelists. We'll be hearing from them shortly. Sponsor today is ScaleMatrix. ScaleMatrix.com is the website. ScaleMatrix delivers variable density colocation, high-performance cloud, data protection, and professional support services from specialized data centers which leverage the future-proof dynamic density control, DDC cabinet platform. With rack density and power efficiency impacting overall IT costs, ScaleMatrix next-generation data centers enable aggressively priced, highly differentiated services which help you compete in today's crowded marketplace. ScaleMatrix clients gain a competitive advantage by leveraging innovative technology platforms and services. The ScaleMatrix goal is to help you scale your business with cutting-edge facilities, scalable hosting platforms, and are always on 24/7, 365 US-based client support, which is always there when you need us. And ScaleMatrix, the website, ScaleMatrix.com. I wanted to note that we also have a participating sponsor today, NVIDIA, and DDC Cabinet Technology is co-sponsoring with ScaleMatrix. So we got through the quick opening remarks here. Briefly about our business, CAPRE is an integrated media, marketing, research, and consulting solution firm for the future of commercial real estate. We have been around for 10 years now. We organized the very popular International Data Center Series, the New Jersey CRE Series, and IREV, among other media and events. Our website, CAPRE Media, is a comprehensive collection of news stories from our events, sponsors, and expert speakers. CAPRE operates CAPRE TV, consisting of free and paid video services with highlights and full-length panels from our renowned events. So that's a little bit about us, capremedia.com. Here is my information on the screen. Feel free to contact me at any time. So we're very excited for today's event, and we're especially excited to introduce our sponsor today. Our sponsor today is Chris Orlando, CEO and co-founder at ScaleMatrix, and chairman and co-founder at DDC Cabinet Technology. Chris, I'm going to read that once more. Chris Orlando, CEO, co-founder of ScaleMatrix, dual role, also serving as chairman and co-founder at DDC Cabinet Technology. Chris joins us today from the Phoenix area, and we're going to welcome Chris. He's going to say a few words about the business, what he's doing there. We have a brief slideshow from Chris. So good for you. It's good morning, Chris.
Yep. Good morning, Brian. Thanks for putting together the presentation and for allowing us to be here today. We're excited to share some information and talk about things that are impacting and very salient to the IT industry as a whole today. If you can drop our first slide up there, we'll go ahead in Orlando, as Brian mentioned, Chairman, CEO, and co-founder of ScaleMatrix. With my business partner, Mark Ortenzi, we run two different organizations today. ScaleMatrix, our brick and mortar hybrid service provider, which are data centers, cloud, and managed services. And then we have another business, DDC Cabinet Technology, where we're using the technology that we've developed over the last 2 decades in our own data centers to help customers modernize and extend data center resources outside of traditional places where you believe data centers would be, and also all the way out to the very, very bleeding edge. We've got Gavin Miller on the panel with us today. You'll hear from him a little bit later. He's Chief Sales and Marketing Officer for DDC Cabinet Technology. And we're pretty excited to share a bunch of information with you guys today about how we see the industry evolving, some of the changes that are happening because of new application development and new technologies. And we're looking forward to sharing that. Brian, if you could advance that next slide for me, please. Thank you. So about a decade ago, after 2 decades of building a variety of different types of data centers, my partner Mark Ortenzi and I decided that we wanted to build a better data center. We knew that density, security, and flexibility from a hardware perspective were going to be some of the big challenges facing multi-tenant colocation providers, but also for those running their own on-premise data centers. So we began to try to figure out how to deploy a better data center. And we developed the platform that you see on the screen there called DDC Cabinet Technology. Basically, these are liquid air hybrid cooled enclosures that allow customers to rack and stack gear just like you would in any other traditional data center, but through better management of airflow, through precision control of airflow and air temperatures, we are able to cool some of the highest density workloads in existence today without requiring any change on behalf of the customer themselves. And that's creating a bunch of very unique things. Over the last couple of years, the green cabinets that you see at the center of the screen are part of our large-scale ScaleMatrix data center deployments. The smaller units that you see there on the screen are part of our R-Series ruggedized micro data centers. And as customers start to look at data center, on-premise, and edge deployments as part of their larger IT strategy, our goal is to allow you to deliver any hardware at any density, anywhere. And so by embracing that true hybrid spirit, we're developing a platform of technologies that allow you to do just that. Brian, if you could advance to the next slide. So just a little bit more about us. Again, ScaleMatrix, 30 years of data center design development amongst our team. In 2011, we took all that knowledge and built what we thought was a better mousetrap based on the green S-Series cabinet technology that allows customers to deploy any density they want in any type of an environment. Last year, at the beginning of 2019, we broke off our technology innovation division and opened DDC Cabinet Technologies, where we now sell that technology to other operators who want to modernize their own facilities and expand data center resources outside of the traditional data center envelope, out into edge locations and a variety of different areas that we'll talk about today throughout the presentation. Brian, if you can advance the next slide. With DDC Cabinet Technology deployments happening all over the world, you can see a variety of them here on your screen. We're really changing the way that people think about the data center. The work that goes into preparing a data center and getting everything ready to accept IT hardware is changing. By being able to deploy these enclosed micro data center cabinets that are modular enough to connect together to deploy very large systems, we're able to allow people to deploy small, medium, large platforms and really have freedom of choice and control over how much capacity to deploy when. In some of the images you see there, you'll see micro data centers deployed in retail centers. You'll see data centers deployed in warehousing and logistics locations, transportation, oil and gas, existing data center modernization projects, all things we can do with this revolutionary technology. And we're excited to share a little bit more about it with you today. Brian, on the next slide. Under the ScaleMatrix moniker, all of our data centers, the brick and mortar sites that you can co-locate with us in around the country, these are the highest density, most energy efficient data centers available to the public in the multi-tenant data center market. We use those things to drive down costs and increase capabilities for our customers. We've got them in 5 different strategic markets around the country. With all of these locations, not only are they new and innovative from the way that we support IT hardware, but they're also cloud connected and support our various different hybrid service portfolios. So customers really can think of us as kind of a one-stop shop where they can do a lot of different things to help advance their business's IT strategy. Brian? On the ScaleMatrix side, that hybrid portfolio, I do want to touch on the fact that these really advanced, high-density, energy-efficient data centers underpin a variety of different offers from cloud, co-location, data protection and managed services, virtual desktop, network connectivity, you name it. Our clients come to us and say, how do we solve these problems? We're launching new applications and new services. We need to be more cost conscious. We need to be more space conscious. And we need to take all these applications and keep them under one roof. And we're able to do that through a variety of different offerings that we'll share with you there on the screen. Brian, if you can go on to the next slide. But we're more than just a data center hybrid service provider. Because we now sell the technology that underpins these advanced data centers around the country, we're helping customers do much more. With our modular cabinet technology and the phenomenal DCIM software that we use to single pane of glass manage all 5 of those data centers across the country, we're able to help customers in our data centers, in their on-premise facilities, out at the edge, or anywhere they require data or advanced computing solutions to be deployed. And we can allow customers to use this software in their own dashboards and management sites to view all of their IT infrastructure holistically, so they have better control and can make better informed decisions about where to put investment in their IT infrastructure. And if you'd like to learn more about that, we'd be happy to share it with you at either scalematrix.com or ddc-cabtech.com as well. Next slide there, Brian. With the modular capabilities of our data centers, you can deploy a single cabinet or thousands of cabinets without impacting the economics of deploying that service or the capabilities. In a lot of statically built data centers where we're looking at 200 or 300 watts per square foot, putting different density workloads in a facility is very difficult. So we built a platform that dynamically modulates all of the resource in the data center based on where the workload is at a certain particular time. We've taken the modularity of that technology and turned it into a prefabricated offering where customers can order any number of cabinets with any amount of density requirements, and we can ship them prefabbed pump, chiller, and cooling systems to help deploy things very rapidly. In this particular example on the screen, this is a 1 megawatt, average 30 kW per rack system that we can ship fully customized to a location where all the customer needs to worry about is having enough power at the site and a flat space to deploy both internal resources for cabinets and external resources for pumps and chillers. And this system can be deployed and up and running in less than a month. So some really unique things because of some of the modularity of our technology. Next slide, Brian. As you can see on the screen, those green cabinets that are deployed in mass at all of our co-location facilities around the country can also be deployed as micro data center solutions. We're going to talk about some of the use cases today in this series about why these things are necessary and how they help bring computational capabilities closer to where the data and the action's happening. But you can see on these screens here, both for defense applications, for logistics companies, anywhere you need a data center to be, we can help you get there. And that's one of the unique things about the ScaleMatrix and DDC relationships that not too many other service providers bring to the market under one roof. Brian? You'll hear a lot today talking about our F-Series cabinet technology. That enclosed liquid air hybrid system is a patented technology that we developed over a decade ago, and it's been battle proven in our 5 data centers all across the United States. Every type of hardware under any type of condition has been deployed in those facilities. We're able to support up to 85 kW of thermal density without having to go to some type of liquid to the chip or other type of cooling technology. And we're able to do so delivering some of the lowest PUEs in the industry, better overall security, and significant risk mitigation because of the design of the cabinet technology itself. And we'd be happy to share more about that as the day continues here. Brian? The whole underpinning of the density advantages and the efficiency advantages are part of our patented technology called dynamic density control. It's where we get DDC in our name. That technology allows us to monitor each individual cabinet, measure the thermal output and the activity in the servers inside, and then deliver resources in the data center to each cabinet in real time based on its demands. This means I can have a 5 kW, a 10 kW, and a 50 kW cabinet adjacent to one another. And this allows you to spend less on network, less on the storage fabric, and to keep critical applications together in the data center, improving rack-to-rack latency and overall return on investment for deployed infrastructure. It's just one of the benefits you get when you work with us here at ScaleMatrix or when you deploy DVC technology in your own data centers. Brian? You'll see here in the background another of our facilities here in the US. That's our Seattle facility up in the Pacific Northwest. When you take an enclosed cabinet like you see on the screen and deploy high-end infrastructure, you get a bunch of other advantages other than just high density and energy efficiency. Because we're controlling airflow and temperature and pressure so precisely, our customers are reporting back to us that they're seeing less equipment failures, longer equipment life, and both of those things equate into better overall uptime. You combine all of that with the lower costs from our extremely energy efficient data centers, and you have a real winning solution for customers that want to look at the multi-tenant data center market as part of their hosting infrastructure, or you can deploy this technology on-premise yourself and receive all of those benefits on-prem. Brian? We talked a little bit about our DCIM software management. All of ScaleMatrix facilities across the nation today are managed through a single pane of glass. You can see kind of in one of the images there, a large-scale facility diagram. At any moment, we're able to dig in down at the row level, the rack level, the facility level, and see exactly what's going on from an environmental perspective, temperature, pressure, all those type of things, electrical use, thermal density, all those things. And that information is then aggregated up to the control platform, which can help run your pumps, chillers, and data center infrastructure systems as efficiently as possible to help reduce costs, improve performance, and deliver a better overall experience for your end users in the data center. And that's all part of the DCIM software that comes with our solution when it's sold to customers on-prem. And it's also available for interaction for our customers in any of our 5 co-location sites around the country. Brian? We have a variety of partners that we work with. We've been very blessed over the last year to ink deals with folks at NVIDIA, at Hewlett-Packard, at NetApp, and it's very great. Hewlett-Packard, in fact, launched their first center of excellence for high-performance computing right in our San Diego headquarters. They did that to demonstrate how high-density data centers and high-performance computing can deliver real return on investment for customers. And we invite anybody that they'd like to go take a look at scalematrix.com/HPE. And you can learn about that partnership and some of the others that we have because of our innovative data centers. Brian? Finally, for our intros, I love to talk about our business and the technology that we've developed, but it's also great to hear from others and what they're saying. The consensus amongst industry rags, local papers, folks in the industry, is that the cabinet technology is becoming highly disruptive. We're giving people more freedom and flexibility. We're delivering unique capabilities specifically around AI, HPC, and now basic enterprise compute deployments that demand more energy efficiency and density in order to deliver the best overall ROI. We look forward to exploring these things with you more today. And Brian, I'll turn it back over to you for the beginning of the session.
All right, Chris, thank you. And fantastic presentation. We're delighted to have you here and involved today in our CAPRE webinar. So we're coming up on 12:23 Eastern Time. And again, for those of you just joining us, we're about 20 minutes into our special CAPRE, Scaling to the Future, How Advanced Computing Demands a New Approach to Data Center Design. This time we're going to move into our first key segment, Building a Competitive Edge, Advanced Computing Solutions in the Data Centers which enable them. And so discussion points within this session: why are advanced computing solutions so important today? What are they, and who is deploying them? What is different about today's next-gen IT infrastructure? What you need to know about deploying it in your data center? How do advancing IT capabilities impact the planning, growth, or modernization efforts of your data center and co-location sites? How do you future-proof your investment in data centers to ensure success as technology evolves? And finally, best practices for co-location, on-prem, and edge data centers of the future. I want to mention, we're seeing some questions come in. There's a GoToWebinar portal to submit your questions. Audience, keep the questions coming during the duration of today's webinar. We want to make this as interactive as possible, so please submit your questions. So Tony, we have a video now. We're just going to roll into the video. Do you want to tell us what we're going to see here? We'll just hit play.
Yeah, this is an overview of the ScaleMatrix business. It's oftentimes better to consume things with your eyes and just hear us talk about it. This will give you a little bit of an inside view as to our data center, the dynamic density control systems, and some of the things that you'll find using our technology. ScaleMatrix is a hybrid service provider built on a foundation of technology innovation. We deliver high-density co-location services, managed services, and personalized professional support services to help enterprises get more out of their IT investment. One of my favorite things about ScaleMatrix is our technology and our people. While we have some of the most advanced technology platforms out there that allow our customers to do things they simply can't do at other data centers, our people are really the underpinning of our service offerings. Technology is tough and advancing faster than any of us have seen in the past, and having an educated, deep bench of technology experts here to help you along that journey is one of the things that we find the most fun in our business here at ScaleMatrix.
We drive passion behind our product deliveries. We understand that not every business has the same needs, so we work with the business's unique needs to deliver the product that they want.
What I'm proud about here at ScaleMatrix is the way we deliver our services. The proprietary technology that we run in our data centers allows customers to do more with less, to get more out of the investment they make in their IT infrastructure. We support customers both small all the way up to the very largest of enterprise customers, and those customers are able to get more value out of the investment they make with us here at ScaleMatrix, and that's a point of pride for all of us here in our team. As the technology and data center industry change, I want ScaleMatrix's legacy to be that we had an impact on that change, changing the way people look at what they can get out of data center infrastructure, changing the way they look at cloud and hybrid services, and changing the way they look at what personalized support combined with advanced technology platforms can do for an enterprise business. Our goal is to help accelerate businesses into the future, and that's something that we're really looking forward to do for more people here at ScaleMatrix.
ScaleMatrix is the only empowering technology partner you'll ever need.
So there's the ScaleMatrix video powered by DDC, Dynamic Density Control. We're going to move in now to our first panel and say hello to our guests. Couple notes. We're going to have some quick polls here. So we're going to take our first quick poll after we introduce the first panel. So Stefan Balaban, CEO, Lambda Labs. Stefan, good to have you here. Good afternoon, good morning. Where do you sit today?
By the way, sorry, it is Stephen actually. But
Stephen, I'm sorry.
Nice
sorry
to
about
you.
that.
Yep, that's fine.
Since spending too much time in Europe, I think they're pronouncing
No,
differently. Right. So where do you sit today? Where do you join us from today?
I'm actually joining from New Haven, Vermont.
Oh, Vermont. You're up in New England.
Yeah, I'm up in New England, and Lambda is headquartered in San Francisco, California, though.
It's great to have you here. Why don't you tell the audience what is Lambda Labs? Start there, and then tell us about yourself and what you're doing there as CEO.
Yeah, so Lambda is an AI infrastructure company. We provide hardware appliances for deep learning, as well as a GPU cloud service for deep learning. We're really just focused on that one application, which is people who are training neural networks to do, to sort of bring this new AI technology to their business. On the appliance side, we have products that go from laptops to workstations to servers to full rack, stack, label, and cabled like sort of roll out of a rack crate type of clusters. And then on the cloud side of things, we've got basically build by the hour GPU cloud instances that sort of just work out of the box for deep learning.
So Stephen Balaban from Lambda Labs, thank you. Hang in there for a minute. Dave Riggers is Chief Technology Officer at Cirrascale Cloud Services. Dave, good morning, good afternoon. Where do you join us from today?
I'm joining you from San Diego, California.
tell us about the business. What should we know? What is it that you do? What's your specialty? And tell us about your role as CTO.
So Cirrascale Cloud Services focuses on delivering high performance computing as a turnkey cloud resource. There's a heavy emphasis around AI and deep learning. We tend to focus on applications and on use cases that require accelerators. So NVIDIA GPUs, Graph-core IPUs, FPGAs. Typically, we're looking towards applications, again, that really benefit from true high-performance computing, both components as well as the entire workflow. We're not your typical cloud provider in that we offer things by the hour or by the minute. We're just the opposite. We try to compete against companies that are trying to do this themselves, and typically we can deliver the services actually for a lower cost as a fully managed cloud service than a customer could do themselves. And one of the key elements to that is managing our data center costs and really optimizing the infrastructure at the data center level so that it doesn't impact the cost of the platforms that we're delivering.
Dave Driggers, thank you. Going to come back to you shortly. Hang in there. Next, we're going to welcome in, well, that is the panel. So, Chris, I'm going to push the first poll question, which is your organization, let's see this here, your organization utilizing advanced computing solutions like AI, HPDA to enhance your competitive edge? So, folks, quick poll meaning we want to get a quick reply here, push the result so we can get a sense of what the audience is thinking. So if you could, everyone could just chime in here and leave this up for about 90 seconds. Is your organization utilizing advanced computing solutions like AI, HPDA to enhance your competitive edge? Chris, while folks are answering, expect about a minute to gather the responses. I'm going to turn it over to you, then we'll push the results. Chris, I want to hand it over to you. We've got Stephen and Dave. Chris?
There we go. Hey, so Dave and Stephen, you both talked a little bit about how you're helping folks utilize these advanced computing technologies. We know that these things have come a long way over the last 3 to 5 years. I'd be interested in hearing from you guys about, what are the biggest advancements you're seeing across these advanced computing capabilities, and what's causing them to be available? What is the driver behind some of the change you're seeing? Dave, you want to start us off?
So when it comes to deep learning, we're finally moving into the age of being able to access tremendous amounts of data fairly easily, collect it, and then leveraging massive compute power to actually process it, do something real with it. And I think that's what's really driving the last couple of years is we went from neural networks that were more conceptual to neural networks that are actually doing real world processing and making money or making good decisions.
Yeah, that's great. Stephen, weigh in on that. Kind of, we've seen all these change. What's creating some of the pathway, and why is it changing so fast right now?
So I think that one of the things that most people pretty much agree on in the industry is that what's been really driving a lot of the change is sort of access to more compute. And OpenAI, which is a leading artificial intelligence research basically organization, they've got a great post on this where they just basically graph the performance and the number of parameters in the network over time, and sort of the amount of compute that has gone into training those networks over time. And that seems to be really the driving forces, the amount of compute that's available to people when they're training those neural networks, because a lot of these networks are actually the same networks that were around since the 1980s. And so really what's changed is the amount of compute on a per dollar basis that's been made available to people.
Yeah, we're seeing that a lot as the cost of compute comes down, as our ability to manage these big plethoras of data that everyone's collecting. We're starting to use those more intelligently, and it's creating change and creating, hopefully for the users of it, some competitive advantages. They start to understand more nuances of their business. And both Stephen and Dave, your companies are helping people get there. A question of kind of a follow on. The folks, we're always trying to understand, how adoption of these technologies is happening, because at the end of that funnel, it really impacts what's happening in the data center, whether it's on-prem or co-location. The more people that adopt these technologies, the bigger the demand is going to be. Who do you guys see as kind of the early adopters, either from a customer or an industry perspective? And then as a second part, who do you think should be? What customers out there, potentially our listeners on the webinar today, that really should be taking advantage of AI and these other advanced computing technologies to further their business? Steve, we'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that a lot of the really strong early adopters that we're seeing is there's two different organizations, I'd say. One is new startup companies, so new enterprises that are just either venture backed or in the research and development phase, and they're bringing in a really sort of fresh look to solve hard problems in industry. And I'd say the other group that we see having mass adoption here is folks, if you will, the big tech giants. So Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, Google, of course, and that's kind of where we're seeing it. And I think that where you're not seeing as much is sort of in the middle. And I think that there's been some really smart, let's say, middle market to higher end of the enterprise players, like, for example, John Deere with their $400 million acquisition of Blue River Technologies, who's a Lambda Labs customer. And they're using deep learning to change how we do agriculture and how we apply fertilizer and insecticide to crops. And so I think that there's a lot of opportunity in between those two ends of the spectrum of just startups or big tech mega corporations.
That's great. Also, nice to hear some of the real world examples and how people are using it. So it sounds like there's great opportunity. Dave, same question about early adopters, and then who should be looking at it to create some advantage for themselves.
So where we see the early adopters are the people who have mass amounts of data who can actually leverage that data to, again, make money. So the automotive industry with automated cars and is moving forward very, very quickly. And we see it also within healthcare. Tremendous opportunity there for leveraging the extreme amount of data they have to get more accurate, both from a drug discovery as well as from AI leverage from assisting doctors in determining, in diagnosis, from anything from MRIs to X-rays to these types of areas. So the early adopters are the ones who can really take advantage of the data to generate more money or save money. And definitely the middle is missing. And I think a lot of the well-funded startups are the ones that are going to help that middle, so that we see the most successful startups are the ones who aren't actually doing the AI themselves, but they're trying to build platforms that can enable that middle, where these big companies can afford to have 100 or even 1,000 data scientists. The middle can't. So we need to be able to support them either from an infrastructure perspective, which is what we're trying to do, because these systems are very difficult to put together in a meaningful way. And then you leverage the startups, the well-funded startups who are trying to help the data scientists from the rest of the side, from the actual AI infrastructure from a software piece.
Yeah. So we saw, Brian, in the poll results that Brian just put up there, that the folks that are using it, yes, a good percent, 20, not yet, which is different than no, right, is 53. If you put those together, it's a pretty large segment of folks who are looking towards these technologies to create competitive edge. One of the reasons why we wanted you guys to be on the panel today is because you're doing so at scale, and I don't just mean at ScaleMatrix data centers, but you're doing so at a level large enough to support multiple customers. So you both have probably had to face, some significant challenges around the technical implementation and delivery of these services. I think it'd be useful for the audience to hear what some of those challenges were, and how you addressed them, and what solutions you brought to bear to be able to scale these solutions economically and cost effectively. Dave, you want to start us off?
Sure. While a lot of people, think AI is easy because they see it from the outside and they see what Google and Facebook and these guys do with the recommendation engines, with Facebook curating your news feed, whether you want it curated or not. These are really challenging to build. We watch our customers go through significant evolution from being very simple proof of concepts. Can I make an algorithm that can actually look at something? And then it takes about 9 months to 12 months of scale to even making that work across multiple users. And then once they start dealing with real world data, the amount of data necessary to actually turn deep learning into something amazing becomes this next gigantic bottleneck. So it's not a simple process. When you look at the hype curve or the evolutionary curve that Gartner likes to use, we see that it takes a single customer typically takes about 3 years to get through their phases. So imagine how long on that curve they live, and how much frustration can be from starting at a standing stop to actually using it in a real world way. And so that's probably the biggest challenge we see is how long it takes for a customer, for a concept to evolve into real world. And it's about, in our experience, it's about 3 years. And they hit a bottleneck at every phase where they move from one step to the next. The bottleneck moves. And if you lose a data scientist in the middle of that, add another year.
So Dave, with a highly data center focused audience here, can you bring that down to kind of the data center level? We know that these advanced computing solutions, are a bit more rigorous and require more resources than traditional enterprise applications. Can you talk about some of the challenges that you guys have seen yourself or others get to, and how are people solving that?
Sure, I think it's a giant wake-up call for people when they start by developing their algorithms, typically on a laptop or a MacBook or something small like that. And then their next step is, oh, by the way, I need a server that uses 3,000 watts of power. And then their next step after, I need a server that uses how much? 3,000 watts of power, and it costs how much? Then it's, oh, I need a rack of those. And now you're talking 30,000 watts of power. And why isn't it scaling? Why is one failing? Why? These evolutions from something as simple as a laptop to big HPC problems. I think we're at a very different time in data center and compute. We used to grow incrementally and very small. You'd add a few servers, that would be another 300, 400, 500 watts, 1,000 watts. Now they grow in giant chunks, in major step functions. Like I say, laptop to 3,000 watts, 3,000 watts to 30,000 watts. Oh, and then they got to work together to actually handle the data. I need high performance storage. These step functions, as you move from one stage to the next, they're massive. The jumps in data center requirements. It's totally different than anything we've seen for the past. I mean, I've been doing this for 20, 30 years. This is the first time growth happens in step functions.
Yeah. So I want to come back to you, David. Stephen, we talked about, the challenges, some of the difference that you're saying. I'd like to get your answers on a couple of those things Dave just commented on as well, your experience.
I mean, of course, I completely agree with Dave. And I think one of the biggest trends that we're seeing, even just for the people who've already been running some level of AI workload, is that the thermal, the TDP on the GPUs is just going up and up and up. So you're going from 250 to 300 to 325 to now the latest NVIDIA top line A100 is 400 watts. And then the servers themselves, it's previously, it was 3,000, but now you're looking at some of the newest 8-way and what will soon to be 16-way A100 servers, and those are going to be consuming 6,000 or more watts, which is, you need this immense level of density. And it's you guys are in such a great space, frankly, on the DDC and ScaleMatrix side, which is these data centers. When people are reimagining what the data center looks like in the age of AI, when all of those workloads that were traditional, I guess, if you will, just programming workloads move over to neural networks, that's when you're going to start to see a complete shift in how every single data center is architected to high density, AI first, and frankly, it's been pretty exciting. I think the other big trend that I think is worth talking about is you look at some things like GPT-3, which is a large language model that was produced by OpenAI, and sort of the progress that you've seen on the language model side of things. A traditional web application, when you go to google.com, for example, and type in a search query. So what happens, right? You got a web HTML page with a form. It sends some sort of a JSON request to a server, gives you your search engine result page based off of database lookups. There's a traditional sort of relational database. There's a web server. This is your standard web, if you will, web application stack, and that's what most data centers, after the .com bubble, were designed around. But now you can actually query something like a neural network like GPT-3, and so the search engines of the future are really just sending some text into a neural network, it doing a bunch of processing on some GPUs or AI accelerators, and then feeding that same result. So you don't have that same relational database stack and all that stuff. And I think that's the big trend that we're seeing, which is the sort of AI is eating the application. So all software, I think it's fair to say that in the future, most software is going to be written in the weights and biases of a neural network and not in Java or C++ or Python.
But Chris, I wanted to just interject and push the next slide and keep this going. But quick poll, so folks watching, get your attention on the screen. Is your data center or colo service provider able to guarantee support for your next two technology refresh cycles? Is AI included? So repeating it, is your data center or colo service provider able to guarantee support for your next two technology refresh cycles? Is AI included? We wanted to get a quick answer. As soon as we get the bulk of the audience, we'll push the results. So Chris, I'll leave this up till we get about 50% of the audience or more to respond, and back to you, Chris.
Absolutely. So that's a great segue, Brian. So both Dave and Stephen, you've talked about, not only are we kind of at the beginning of that curve, right? Where we talked about more and more of this is going to start occurring. We're talking about how we're looking at completely changing the way we conceive data centers, conceive applications and software, looking at these AI first trends. And we believe that it's going to become a much, much larger segment, which, leads us back to what I talked about in the beginning, that we believe that there is a coming wave of demand for data centers, multi-tenant colo facilities, and on-premise locations where they're going to have to adjust to these new capabilities. The kind of one-size-fits-all 200 or 300 watt per square foot design tends to, in some cases, strand assets and create challenges for deploying these complex applications. And so, without giving away your guys' secret sauce, right? Can you talk about specifically in the data center? You guys are both customers of Scale at different phases. Talk a little bit about what you've done, why you needed to find a provider like us, and how important you think that is for others as they consider moving forward their development. Steve, maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, so very much related to that question, which is, can your colo or DC provide for sort of the next couple refresh cycles? Right now with the Lambda GPU cloud, which we have hosted down in ScaleMatrix, we're hitting I think 30 to 40 kilowatts in one rack. I mean, we've got an extremely dense setup, and there really, frankly, isn't anybody out there that we've spoken with, other than if we were to build our own data center and use DDC cabinets, that's able to deliver on that sort of level of density. And then most importantly, it really can't be underestimated, is to deliver on that without having to completely reimagine what the actual nodes look like, what the actual IT equipment that we're putting into the rack looks like, because there's so much flexibility that you get by not having to say, well, you need to use a server that has on-chip liquid cooling. And when that's what the conversation goes to, you're really losing out. And so, that's how we've seen it. I mean, look, we're running 30 to 40, and if you were to go and talk to Equinix or another co-location provider. Today, they're going to say, best we can do for you in like SV2 is like 11 or 13 kVA per rack, which is a quarter to a fifth of what you guys were able to do. So I think it's a big trend, and it's super interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Stephen. Thanks for the specifics on it. Dave, love to hear your thoughts. I know you're an extensive user with some pretty big platforms deployed out there.
Sure. So there's two things that are happening. Like you said, moving towards your next generations of refreshes. We're in HPC computing, we tend to go from scale up to scale out to scale up to scale out. We're right now at a time when people are looking to scale up. As Stephen mentioned, these are bigger boxes and they're getting bigger. We're looking at potentially partnering with somebody who has 20,000 kilowatts in one server. That's a big box. So that's massive scale up. What's going to come after scale up is going to be scale out. So not only are we going to have these big boxes, but we're going to have to start connecting them and scaling out. And part of that scaling out, where we're different as a service provider, we're not building a supercomputer that's a whole bunch of the exact same machine. We have to have horses for courses. We have to have different machines along with storage, along with networking. It has to be close coupled sometimes. Well, that's where the DDC cabinet, not having to go to a liquid cooled system and being able to mix and match different types of equipment and have it cooled by air, makes a huge advantage for us. So we don't have to make these giant decisions. We can really build the workflows, build the platforms that match the customer requirement, versus having just a generic offering. In our case, because we're trying to compete against somebody doing on a prem, performance matters, cost matters. So we've got to save everywhere we can. So we can't have custom solutions. We've got to be able to build with the best of breed and then know that it's going to work. And that's one of the biggest advantages of being in a air-cooled, high-performance cabinet.
That's great. I appreciate that, Dave. If you look at, with Stephen's comment about going to
or Chris, we've got a couple questions come in. Do you want me to pop in, or do you want to take these in a few minutes?
Yeah, let's just take them in a few minutes. I want to kind of close out that particular, thought process. Was that, Stephen mentioned going to another data center and asking to deliver these 30 and 40 kW workloads. And the answer for most people today is either, hey, we can do something like that, but it's highly customized. It's going to become a one-off in the data center. It's not the way we traditionally deliver. Or they're simply going to say, hey, look, let's spread out those workloads into a bunch of 10 kW chunks, right? It's the way we've dealt with things in the past. But as I mentioned previously, network, storage fabrics, interconnects, rack-to-rack latency, all becoming a big thing. And the pushing that cost back on the end user, saying, hey, look, you're going to have to spread all those things out, try to get to it. Sometimes it's just very costly, and sometimes just isn't technically feasible as you're trying to get, better overall rack-to-rack communication. I think you've both illustrated that is the case, that being able to be more dense in individual rack is a great benefit to your business models and to those looking to deploy AI. A pointed question I had for you here is, how big of an issue is overall is efficiency? And in the data center industry, we call it PUE, but it's energy efficiency, sustainability. That's a big part of the overall ROI, I would imagine. I wonder how much it feeds into each of your decisions about where you co-locate or how you use data centers today.
Yeah,
Steve?
I mean, sure. Naturally, efficiency matters, especially when it comes to where you're putting your systems. So, being able to get, I think there's two interesting aspects of the story, which is because as we're planning out sort of a brownfield data center retrofit at Lambda for our GPU cloud, you look at both the rack level and then the overall data center level. And one of the cool things that we really like about DDC specifically actually is the fact that instead of having to make all these investments in entire building HVAC systems, you can just say, okay, one step at a time, we're going to do the first row, we're going to do the second row, and it really just kind of makes sense, which is if you were to go up to somebody and say, hey, what do you think is going to be more efficient? Cooling all the air inside of a data center with a cold and hot aisle containment, hot aisle containment, and just cooling all the air around a server rack, or just cooling the air in a server rack. And I can tell you, everyone knows that the answer is, the more efficient answer is to just cool the air that's in the server rack. And I think that's just a really genius solution that you guys have come up with there.
I appreciate it. We're definitely seeing customers take advantage of that, and they look at their bigger ROI and they figure out, hey, look, cooling less obviously makes logical sense. Cooling more efficiently and focusing that cooling does great things for overall ROI. Dave, what's your experience then?
So I'm going to be a bit of a contrarian here. Efficiency doesn't directly matter to us. Performance does. Where efficiency matters to you because you're able to be more competitive delivering HPC at a normal cost versus again, these other providers we've talked about. If you mention HPC, all of a sudden your price per kilowatt doubles because ultimately they have to give you more space. They have to burn up data center resources that it wasn't planned around because they're not modular. So efficiency doesn't really matter to me directly, except that it enables you to give me a better cost. For me, it really is about performance. Because you're handling the efficiency one tier up from me. I'm not having to worry about efficiency.
That's great. Yeah, so I mean, there's both tangible and intangible benefits to efficiency depending on your perspective. I think anyone that's buying power in larger quantities today, where the PUE is an effect on the overall sale price of the service, obviously that has some impact. Brian, would you mind putting the survey answers back up there real quick? Just from that last survey that we did, if that's possible. So,
stand by and get that up there. Hold on a second.
Yeah, no worries. So we saw in those answers, is your colo provider able to support the things for your next couple of refresh cycles, including AI? We saw yes as an answer from 38%. I asked those folks to go out and really look at what 30 and 40 kW racks look like in existing facilities. It's an important thing to make sure you can get what's being promised. And then the no and unsure categories are kind of together here because, moving a co-location site, if you're doing things there, or having to reinvent something on-prem, is a really big decision for any enterprise. And so if you're going to invest in these technologies as they proliferate down into larger and larger segments of the market, you got to think about your data center, you got to think about your colo provider, and make sure they can keep up with you as the pace of adoption of these new advanced technologies happens. Brian, did you say we had some questions?
Yeah, we had a few questions come in here, Chris, and we'll get to these now. Some of these are a bit lengthy, but I'll try to read these and summarize as best possible. One of the viewers wants to know, what are your thoughts on the input DC voltage that will be the most efficient to provide the higher power densities from the shift to advanced computing solutions? Will this technology be a driver for 48 VDC at the cabinet, i.e. OCP-like? If you want to repeat that, let me know. Or do you think did you get it?
Yeah, I've got answers on that. Dave and Stephen, either one of you guys want to talk about that a little bit?
Sorry, can you just repeat the question? I heard OCP. I heard the OCP like, and I just wanted to just make sure I'm understanding the question.
Yeah, the viewer is asking, what are your thoughts on the input DC voltage that will be the most efficient to provide the higher power densities from the shift to advanced computing solutions? Will this technology be a driver for 48 VDC at the cabinet? Will it be OCP-like?
Thank you. Okay, got it. Yeah, so if I may, I've got some thoughts on this. So actually, our principal hardware architect was on one of the driving boards at OCP when they were designing that, a guy named Thomas Summers. And I think that it just makes sense. When you're talking about converting to DC and having those sort of those DC backplanes and really sort of moving away from having a bunch of really inefficient on-node AC to DC converters. That's basically what power supplies are, right? it makes a lot of sense. I think that one of the problems is, and what you're going to see with a lot of folks is, it just gets complicated, right? Putting in that power bus and putting in the DC backplane, and then having to be in some sense stuck with an OCP or some sort of backplaned server solution. It just seems a little bit it's a little bit extreme, I think, for most people. And so I think that's like the main thing that's getting in the way of mass adoption of direct DC in the data center, is just the availability of systems that just work. And I think one interesting trend that I'm seeing, at least on that side of things, is AWS has their new Outpost, which is their thing that comes on-prem. It competes with our stuff, and so it's always interesting to watch what they're doing. But they are actually doing something where you slide in the server and it does have a shared DC backplane. And so it's interesting that they're going that, and that's at the rack level. And so maybe that does make sense if you're buying at the rack level. But if you're not buying at the rack level, I think it's a little bit hard to say why you do that.
Dave, how about you?
So again, I focus on, I've been dealing with power for a very, very long time, and we're at a big different scenario right now than we were when people started looking at DC solutions for clusters. The clusters weren't very expensive per rack, and so the cost of the data center, the cost of power delivery, the efficiencies, all were a big part of the cost. NVIDIA just announced their new DGX A180. It's $300,000 base cost plus $60,000 of service, and it's this big. My cost of power, my efficiency of my power doesn't mean crap to me. It really doesn't. I'm glad it's saving. I'm glad it's there. That server overwhelms infrastructure costs, and that's the trend we're moving towards. Our servers are consistently getting bigger and bigger and bigger and more expensive. Yep. The efficiency of my power is not that critical. And as the type of service provider we are, we buy all different kinds of hardware. The only way to get really good efficiencies from DC is if everything is monolithic and everything supports that. It's great for a supercomputer. It's great for somebody like Amazon who has hundreds of thousands of the exact same thing. It's not practical for us at all. And we move really fast. And power supplies are very difficult to develop, especially big ones. So it's not practical for us at all.
Yeah, I mean,
I completely agree
on that. I also want to say just at one point, which is, frankly, right now we're in a world where the cost of the IT equipment and the depreciation expenses just far outweihes right now the cost and expenses of power. And if you're talking about trying to get some advantage by having a AC/DC transmission, AC/DC conversion efficiency gains, you're barking up the wrong tree. I totally agree with that.
And just two last points there real quick. Stephen, you mentioned earlier, we're trying to build things that are open enough to support a variety of different hardware that aren't too specialized. That's really what the DDC cabinets and ScaleMatrix data centers are all about. You can put any hardware in there, you can plug it in, and you can use it ubiquitously, so you have freedom of choice like Dave was talking about. But at the same time, when we're taking DDC and helping customers build 10, 20, and 30 megawatt facilities, we are looking at the efficiencies of power because we're scaling at a size where it begins to impact it. So I think the real answers are, it depends on your use case, how big your deployment is. And so I think that's a great question. Thanks for it, whichever viewer supported that.
So another question here, Chris, and we have a couple more polls, so we'll get to those shortly. Is the view that the next two technology refresh cycles, such as neural, et cetera, will basically render existing data centers obsolete as other physical designs are necessary? For example, increased power per stack requiring cooling, et cetera. Or will it just mean that fewer servers will be installed in a given space to deal with cooling power requirements? I don't know, does that make sense to you? Do you want me to repeat that?
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, right now, I don't. we're still behind the technology curve for scale up. So right now it's the compute, we still need more. We need a lot more. So I don't see that changing for a while. Even I would say the next compute is going to be more accelerators, and until those accelerators get really, really good, we're going to need more power. Yes, we're breaking normal data centers. We're not breaking ScaleMatrix's data center.
Steven, you got a comment?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're seeing this trend where whether you're looking at, for example, the latest Mellanox director switch, which is their 200 Gbps HDR director switch, which is a spine and leaf topology director switch. That's a water-cooled solution, right? And so you can't run that director switch if you don't have a data center that supports water cooling. I think it's the wrong direction, right? I think that's the wrong direction, which is putting the water cooling onto the devices and having each device be this sort of on-chip water-cooled device. I think the right direction is, how do you make a normal data center and normal IT equipment that exists today, how do you make that work? And how do you make it so that those, how do you make it so that that works? I think, though, in general, I think it's fair to say that in the next two refresh cycles, was it 4 or 5 years from now, I think that you'll see some people who are still stuck in this 10 to 15 kilowatt per rack mode, and they're just putting, they're going to be putting in one server per rack, right? Or maybe they're going to be given a cage and said, slap on the back, good luck. You figure out what's going to happen there. And but I think you're going to see a lot of people just moving over just from the perspective that when you're building up, a big InfiniBand network, InfiniBand fabric, or you really, it just makes sense to have it all on one rack as opposed to spreading it out like that.
Chris,
yeah, I'll give you two.
Poll just so we can still keep the answers going, but to keep it moving.
Sure.
The evolving hybrid arena, are you planning to use cloud, colo, and on-prem DCs as part of your future IT plan? ? So guys, just folks watching, try to submit your answers as quickly as possible and go back to you.
Yeah, so just in answer to that last webinar customer's questions, I think if history's taught us anything, I was standing in our San Diego headquarters 5 years ago, and I had a reporter from one of the magazines ask me, hey, HPC and AI were driving servers, all this power down to these little tiny units. What are you going to do with all this data center space? It's just going to be a waste. And all I can tell you now is that myself and my peers in the data center industry, we're building as fast as we can right now, even though we've condensed so much into a small footprint. So I do think there's an obsolete scare if you're building one-size-fits-all data centers that can't efficiently deploy variable density in a single environment. I think that's challenging. And I will say that, in our testing right now, I mean, we're working on 85 kW racks that are using hardware that was originally spec'd for liquid to chip, and we are cooling those things with air. So absolutely lots of flexibility who people who don't want to make that giant jump. And I think there's lots of room for growth, and I don't think the data centers are going to sit idle anytime in the near future because of it.
So I posted the result. I don't know if you guys want to react to that. And then, Chris, I think we're going to try to wrap up this segment to our next segment too. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're talking about hybrid arena. Are you planning to utilize cloud, colo, and on-prem? I think this is a fantastic trend to see because what we're doing is we're getting more intelligent with the way we manage things. The cloud is right for some things. On-prem is right for some things. Crown jewels, intellectual property, things that you have to know where they are. And then the edge, right, is becoming a big piece of it. Very few people saying no. I think ones that are kind of going all in on only one technology are putting some risk into their organization. And unsure, right, is that you're still trying to figure out where and how these things work the best. Dave or Steven, would you guys like to weigh in on that particular point?
I would definitely love to. So actually, part of what we do at Lambda is we've got this GPU cloud service where you're spinning up virtual machines on hardware. But what we're actually doing is we're bringing that software to your on-prem devices. So the hardware appliances that we sell very shortly are going to start showing up in our what is going to become a hybrid cloud dashboard. And what we're really seeing and what we're trying to do for folks is give them the economics of on-prem, but the convenience and sort of self-serviceability of cloud. So where you can spin up a virtual machine on an on-prem device, and it's all going to be shown to you in that single pane of glass on our cloud dashboard. That's what we're really trying to go for. We think that on-prem isn't going anywhere. It's just not going anywhere. And so what our job is, and what we're trying to do as a company, is provide the resources to people, provide the software to people, so that they can have that cloud-like experience with the economics of on-prem.
That's great. Dave?
Yeah, well, we definitely believe that as companies evolve and they start doing AI for production workloads, that there's definitely going to be a hybrid scenario. The major the hyperscalers are fantastic at the ingest point and at the inferencing point because they're everywhere. They're terrible at training. They're terrible at production. They're terrible because they become very expensive if you're on them all the time. And so that means it's either going to be on-prem or it's going to be with boutique providers like Lambda and like Cirrascale, where we're really good at the hard stuff, at the training. We're really good at actually scaling the platform when you have to scale up or scale out in a tight fashion. So we believe completely in the hybrid model and expect that most large corporations are going to wind up having all three: some on-prem, some in boutique, and then a large amount in the hyperscalers, where the hyperscalers make sense.
Got it. Well, guys, a lot of information shared today, talking about your businesses, how you help people enable these applications and high computing workloads. Thank you for being customers of ours and for leveraging our data centers to help create competitive advantage. I encourage others to do so as well. But thanks for sharing all the information about your business and where we see the industry and kind of the data center roadmap going.
Thanks a lot for having us.
Thank you.
All right, Chris, it's 1:12. Before we move into the next segment, as we gear up for it, we got Tony Tekaday and Gavin Miller turn on your webcams and get in standby mode.
Okay.
But Tony and Gavin.
Guys.
So we're going to move into session 2, AI Anywhere, removing data center barriers and democratizing AI capabilities for all. So again, AI Anywhere, removing data center barriers and democratizing AI capabilities for all. We're going to have Gavin and Tony turn on your camera. Tony, I sent you another webcam request. Proposed discussion points coming up here. Why are enterprises investing in advanced computing solutions like AI now, even amidst the pandemic? What makes AI different from conventional enterprise applications? Why is AI infrastructure challenging? Should companies do AI on-prem, in the cloud, or at the edge, and learn how to deploy AI anywhere? So we have a video that we're going to play now. Chris, if you want to describe this, and then we'll press play.
Yeah, so in the last session, we talked about advanced computing solutions, how they're impacting the data center, et cetera. With our partners at NVIDIA, we've launched an initiative called AI Anywhere, where we're really trying to democratize AI capabilities for everyone. We do so through some really unique technologies, and this is a video that has a little bit of an overview about how we do that in partnership with some of the greatest folks out there in this industry.
Organizations that want to infuse their business with the power of AI, for instance, to improve customer interactions, to deliver better patient outcomes, to streamline their supply chain, need massive computational power to solve their most complex problems. This is why we built NVIDIA DGX SuperPod, to deliver massive computational power and scale that can allow any enterprise to solve their most complex AI challenges.
The customers that are looking at HPC and AI workloads have a variety of challenges that are slightly different from the enterprise workloads. Density, energy efficiency, all those things become slightly more elevated. So at ScaleMatrix, our data centers are based on the DDC, Dynamic Density Control Platform. we built this in a modular way so we can scale our data center based on the needs of our clients.
NetApp, NVIDIA, and ScaleMatrix are bringing to the industry the first AI anywhere solution that allows for self-contained AI data centers that can be deployed at the edge site, in the last mile, in the AI core, or near cloud, allowing customers to bring to life AI use cases across verticals such as oil and gas, energy, autonomous transportation, and healthcare.
We built an ecosystem of world-class data center technology providers to bring this solution to life. With a combination of NVIDIA DGX, NetApp storage, and Mellanox network fabric, we're able to deliver an enterprise-grade solution for AI supercomputing that delivers these benefits to enterprise. They get faster deployment, elimination of design complexity, and a solution that's easier to support, available through a network of qualified NVIDIA partners. This way, they're able to deploy a top 20 class AI supercomputer in a fraction of the time it would have taken them before.
All right. So with that, we're going to move into our next segment now and say hello to our guest. Gavin Miller is Chief Sales and Marketing Officer at DDC Cabinet Technology. Gavin, good afternoon. And if you could tell us about your role at DDC.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, so, I got into the edge data center environment about 5 years ago now, and really felt that as technology was changing, we were going to see the need for data center type devices at non-traditional locations. And then through conversations I had with Chris, as we were just starting to see the densities grow in our business, it just kind of made sense for us to combine forces. So I came through an acquisition and agreed to stay on to run the sales and marketing efforts of DDC. And we're really focused on taking the complexity out of the equation from the data center aspect. Whether you want to host it in a ScaleMatrix facility, whether you want us to build a facility or an edge deployment in your facility, or really taking it out to the edge. We've got customers that have units 9,000 feet underground in mines. We've got customers that have them on rooftops on skyscrapers and everywhere in between.
All right, and next up is Tony Peccaday, Senior Director of Product Marketing, Artificial Intelligence Systems at NVIDIA. Tony, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hey, I got to apologize because GoToMeeting is not cooperating with my webcam. I've tried multiple times, so unfortunately, it looks like audio only.
That's fine. I mean, we can hear you clearly. So, Tony, it's a delight to have you here. What message would you want to get out to our audience today about NVIDIA, and then specifically your role as Senior Director of Product Marketing and AI Systems?
Sure. So first of all, happy to be here. Thankful to ScaleMatrix team for putting this together. Essentially, our mission, especially the DGX Systems Business Unit, which is our flagship AI system product within NVIDIA, has been centered on three key things. Basically, enabling enterprises to have a seamless experience, deploying AI infrastructure and building great AI applications without having to worry about systems integration, architectural design, and other challenges of scaling up AI. We aim to also ensure that their developers have an effortless workflow and a streamlined productivity that allows them to go from great AI ideas into deployed applications in a fraction of the time it would otherwise take. And I guess the third thing is really giving IT organizations a simplified operational model for how to manage and scale AI infrastructure. This is really our charter in the DGX Systems Business Unit, and my role is helping enterprises and service providers around the world build great AI infrastructure to help their customers accomplish incredible things.
So we've got two more poll questions. We'll push this one now and just keep these poll questions coming. How is Edge playing into your IT planning? None. Just starting, need solutions to help accelerate. How is Edge playing into your IT planning? None. Just starting, need solutions to help accelerate. Quick poll, meaning audience, quickly submit your answers. We'll post the results in about 90 seconds. So I'm going to turn it back to Chris now to moderate our second key segment.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. So Tony and Gavin, you heard a bit from the first section, a lot of advancements in IT and computing capabilities, and they're having a real impact on the data center. We want to dig in this section a little bit more and talk specifically around AI. And who better to do that than with Tony here from NVIDIA. You guys are helping create a tremendous amount of demand in the industry and launching new capabilities. I will say that the relationship and partnership that ScaleMatrix and DDC have had with NVIDIA is one of the most fun ones out there. Not only because you guys are pushing the capacity and performance envelope of what compute can do, and our data centers are responding in kind to that, but it's more so about the customers that we're able to work with together, because there's so many fascinating use cases that come out of working in the AI and advanced computing spheres with people that are out there taking this technology and doing some really fascinating things with it. And we're here to try to enable those. So let's get into the panel and talk a little bit about that. Let's start off talking about why are enterprises investing in advanced computing solutions like AI now more than ever, even amongst the pandemic. Tony, I bet you've got a lot of experience in that field. Why don't we start off with you?
Sure. It's been really surprising. If I look at the year, we're almost, done the calendar year, and I would have almost never expected the velocity and scale with which organizations around the world are building AI infrastructure. It's definitely not been a retrenchment of any kind. It's funny that I think AI and AI platforms have made it to the top of the list for most CIOs. Most organizations that are trying to manage through a downturn or manage through a pandemic are realizing that the current situation that we're in now is not unlike what people saw in 2008 or 2001 or even 87, right? There's really three key things well-managed organizations do in this environment. And I think this is why we're seeing such an uptick in AI infrastructure. Well-managed companies, they draw customers closer, build better customer experiences and relationships. So you take, for instance, organizations like Domino's Pizza. They're using DGX, the system we build, to improve order communications accuracy. They've boosted it from like 75% to 95%. So who would imagine, pizza delivery being impacted by AI? The world's fastest growing messenger platform, South Korea's Naver, deployed a DGX SuperPod to deliver state-of-the-art language models to enhance customer experience. Another key pillar besides customer loyalty is around operational costs. We see so many customers doubling down on AI to reduce and improve costs. So for instance, there's companies like Lockheed Martin. They're using DGX to classify maintenance records with over 90% accuracy to help ensure equipment uptime. We see Walmart using it to improve inventory forecast. We see BMW, who receives almost 10,000 new car orders a day, 100 different options, 2,100 possible options or combinations per car, 30 million raw parts. They're using AI and DGX to improve their factory operations. So, operational costs, second great pillar that companies focus on. And I guess the third one is around strategic agility. I think well-managed organizations use this time to spot directional shifts and stay ahead of their competitors. So they do things like call center transcription. They improve agent training. Amex is using it and our DGX systems to improve fraud detection, and they handle like 8 billion transactions a year. So these are just some examples, but what I find is the common thread and why we're seeing people double down on AI even amidst the pandemic is they know that AI is uniquely well-suited to helping them position for the light at the end of the tunnel and outpace their competitors during this time.
So, Chris, we just pushed sir, how's edge playing in your IT planning? And we'll leave that up on the screen for a couple of minutes and let you guys react.
Okay, that's great. I appreciate that. Hey, Gavin, thoughts on on the double down that's happening? We're seeing tremendous amount of AI implementation. We talked in the last panel about the fact that more and more people are adopting this technology. It's creating strain and requirements in the data center. Any thoughts from you on that particular point?
Yeah, Chris, I mean, we've often heard people need to do more with less, right? And I think we're seeing that, and not only do more with less, but do things in a different way. As we've seen, employees working from home, they just need to approach their businesses differently. And from where we sit, we're seeing it across various industries, whether that be mining, aerospace, research labs. Everybody's looking to have better outcomes, whether that's for the products that they're delivering, the returns they're providing to their investors, their shareholders, or the customer benefits. And we're seeing it across all industries, frankly, from autonomous driving to retail to advanced engineering. And it's great from our perspective to be able to help people think differently about their infrastructure needs. I don't think we're going to see any decrease in the trend in AI. So now, from our perspective, it's helping people integrate that hardware infrastructure into their environment.
Well, I'd like to talk a little bit, get into the specifics and then pull back out to the application for a minute. Tony, you talked about, back in 2008, there was an economic issue. People started to look at how do we come out of this stronger. Right now, we're in, the first global pandemic of all of our lifetimes. People are investing to not only improve operations and costs, but to be prepared for how to come out of this on the other side. But, savings and operational efficiencies sounded like they were part of a bunch of those customer examples we provided. NVIDIA prides themselves on providing, yes, they're very high density machines, but if you calculate the comparison between those and their counterparts, how much compute it would take to deliver the same capacity, you guys actually focus on being a very, very efficient solution. Efficiency is part of our core at DDC and at ScaleMatrix, and I'm just curious how efficiency plays into the decisions that some of your customers are making as they're looking at new AI solutions.
Yeah, it's absolutely critical. Many struggle with how to improve data center efficiency, but at the same time scale up AI compute. And what they've seen is that with legacy infrastructure, they're potentially spending millions upon millions of dollars in traditional x86 CPU-based servers. And what we're really helping them realize is that they can spend a fraction of that and ultimately run a more efficient data center operation with higher performance, enabling their developers to iterate on their AI models much quicker. But what they need for that is the right kind of facilities that can host that infrastructure. And that's why I think we enjoy the partnership with ScaleMatrix and the DDC solutions, because it's one thing to have these incredible accelerated computing systems that can do these incredible things and shrink time to solution on the world's most complex AI problems. But you need solutions that democratize that technology. And I think that's really part and parcel of what the names represented here are doing. We're taking the natural efficiencies in the computing infrastructure and marrying them with a more efficient model for how to host and deploy. I think about the ability to put a multi-petaflop supercomputer inside of a DDC cabinet and not have to land it in a traditional data center, and instead be able to basically put it anywhere you have a flat surface, with standard electricity and not any special overhead, cooling apparatus. That's a huge unifier. That's a huge democratizer for enterprises that, for instance, want to implement AI to improve, inventory forecast management, and they don't have a traditional data center, but they know they need the, AI computing footprint to do it. So I think really, when customers look at the combination of DGX system technology in combination with ScaleMatrix and DDC, they're really getting kind of this 1 + 1 = 3 when it comes to the efficiency perspective.
Yeah. Let's put up our final poll question, guys. If you the 5 polls is the final one. If you could modernize an existing on-prem data center to extend that investment, would it play a larger part of your IT strategy? So quick poll. If everyone wants to try to give us your answer, yes, no, unsure, need more info in the next 90 seconds, we'll push the results. Back to you, Chris.
No worries. Hey, Brian, can you put up the header slide for this particular session? It had an image of one of our deployments, and Tony was talking about the ability to deploy a supercomputer just about anywhere, where traditional data centers may not be ready to support the level of density that these new supercomputing capabilities require, or just simply may not be able to do it efficiently. Last year at Supercompute, when we were all still able to meet together, we launched the AI Anywhere initiative, where we took a 13 petaflop computer and ran it live on the Supercompute 2019 show floor with just a small micro chiller and the 2 cabinets. I don't know, Brian, if you got that image from the opener for this particular session. You had it on there a moment ago. But that small little micro computer or micro deployment is really changing the way people are thinking about data centers. There you go. That's the image of it there. So 13 petaflops in 2 cabinets, tremendous amount of density capability, a little micro chiller and a small water loop. We set the thing up in about 4 hours. We deployed it on a show floor and we operated, and the industry really took a great response. They're saying, hey, look, we're rethinking how the data center has to be. Some of these extremely advanced applications need to be in locations where data centers may not exist or may need to be deployed rapidly. And so the democratizing of this capability that we're talking about in this session, making it easier for people to do, removing the restrictions that associate with the traditional data center deployments, are all part of what this consortium is all about. Gavin, if you don't mind, we'll ask you, in a number of the deployments that we're talking about, energy efficiency, both from a compute and a platform perspective, is really critical. Can you talk about maybe some of the examples, without giving too many names, about how efficiency is driving some of the decisions our customers are making right now?
Yeah, Chris. So our approach was to really rethink the data center. And, by putting everything in the cabinet, we have a cold aisle, we have a hot aisle, we have fire suppression, we have the racking, yet it's in a very concise and easily manageable and controlled environment. And so with that, our PUE at the rack level is, I think record breaking. And then when we have the ability to also control the chilling environment, the pump environment, our software allows you to get the best efficiencies out of kind of every device along the way. And, we're seeing PUEs in the, I'll be conservative and say 1.15, total, and better in some cases. But certainly we're taking the complexity out of that. And the great thing about the overall system is it does it dynamically with less, human intervention. If you open up the doors, more cooling comes into it to allow you to do whatever you have to do. You increase the number of servers or swap out for the, latest NVIDIA gear, and it might be running another 6 kW than what your cabinet was before you shut those doors, and it's just going to figure out the right precise cooling that's needed without any human intervention. And your workload between cabinet A and cabinet B can be widely different, and then it allows you to follow those peaks and valleys of your computing throughout the day without having to really consider what's happening at the infrastructure level, which really takes a lot of the complexity out of it for the operators, as well as forward planning of what you're going to do next. We've talked to many customers that had to build megawatt capacity each time they needed to expand because of the technology they were doing. And with ours, it's really a deploy as you need it, when you need it. And given the cabinet is kind of positive pressure, it can be in non-traditional environments. It can be on the manufacturing floor with debris and dust particles all around, and we'll keep that environment running efficiently and effectively and clean, as you mentioned in the previous session.
Yep. So Brian, we had some poll results up there a moment ago about edge, and so maybe I want to shift a little bit. We know that AI infrastructure really does kind of push the boundaries of traditional data centers. We know that a solution that enables you to build data centers faster, more efficiently, certainly can be beneficial. This is folks talking about how edge is playing into it. In the previous session, we talked about hybrid solutions where both on-premise data centers, co-location facilities, and edge deployments were a part of people's hybrid strategy. In this poll, we're seeing that 25% of people saying, hey, I'm not utilizing edge as part of my strategy. But if you take 42 and 33 together, the ones that are starting and those that need help getting there, that's a pretty big segment of the market starting to consider edge as part of that overall strategy. Tony, we've talked about things like data gravity. We've talked about hybrid services. What's NVIDIA's position, and how do you feel about how edge plays into this overall kind of AI anywhere capability?
Yeah, it's super important because essentially, the mantra here, at least for AI model development, is essentially train where your data lands. And that's not necessarily in the four walls of a data center. And oftentimes the most efficient way to enable your AI development workflow is to put the computing power that you need in very close and tight proximity to where the data is being created. And so we see a lot of scenarios where that means putting this kind of infrastructure in very non-traditional spaces. For a lot of organizations, it's less and less efficient to backhaul large data sets for training runs. And with a training run, it's not a one and done thing. You build your model, you build your prototype, you train it at scale, you deploy it in production, and then guess what? Data drifts, and then you've got to retrain it. And this is ongoing cyclical loop of model iterations. So it becomes especially important that you don't find yourself a victim of data gravity, whereby you're spending too much time moving the data sets from where they're generated to where your compute instances reside. This is why we see a lot of organizations, in fact, repatriating workload from cloud, because their data scientists and their developers are spending too much time moving massive data sets up to the cloud, maybe finding a day later after their job kicks off that something was set wrong. They got to do this all over again. And in the meantime, their OpEx is escalating. So we definitely see value in the kind of solutions we're talking today in terms of shrinking time and distance between where that data lives and is created and the computing infrastructure. So being able to, for instance, move DGX infrastructure out to the edge, for instance, the factory floor, or even in remote environments where you may have, video streams coming in from drones that are doing industrial site inspection, or even just remote regional offices that are handling very large data sets, and you don't want to have to truck all of that back to a centralized data center. The definition of edge is becoming more and more important in the sense of organizations need viable ways to bring the compute to where the data lives and is created.
Yeah. Brian, while we're talking about this subject, if it's possible for you to put the second page of my slide deck up in the background, that'd be really helpful. We're talking about edge. We're talking about where people are moving data and how important it is to be able to get computational capabilities near the edge. I think one of the things, Gavin, that we're learning as we're supporting customers who are out on this mission is that we're not really dropping a bunch of pizza boxes out at the edge. When we're having to do compute, right? The family of products slide would be great, Brian, where you got all the different cabinet technologies there. That'd be great. Maybe it's the third one. We're having to get compute out to the edge. It's generally not just kind of generic compute. It's stuff that can actually take data and make decisions from it. And so what we're finding is customers that are coming to us saying, hey, look, we're in all of these different types of environments. We're in the retail space. We're out in logistics warehouses. We're out in an oil and gas field. We're here and there. And when you're thinking about projects that require us to manage data in those environments, it's generally higher capacity computing. It's not just generic services. So Gavin, you want to talk just a little bit about some of the things that we're seeing our customers need and what some of those requirements look like?
Yeah, one of the pictures that was up there was retail, and I think it's even more.
You can go back to the last slide, Brian.
Even more, given the pandemic that we find ourselves in, what some people are doing are going to more of a touchless type experience at the retail environment, where basically you can take product off the shelf, put it into your shopping cart, leave, and you are billed for what you consumed or purchased from the environment. as well as a lot of video inferencing going on within the stores to say, what's the person looking to potentially do next. So that's something that's really requiring a lot of compute power at a retail operation that certainly wasn't thought of several years ago. Look at the manufacturing floor and the machine floor, all of the control of the robotics and the systems that are doing that. You need to have a very robust environment in order to manage some of those machines, as well as take the information that those machines, appliances, whatever are providing back to you, and having better outcomes and doing more inference at that. We talked about autonomous driving earlier, and all the advancements that are being made there. And a lot of that has to be obviously done in real time. Then they're taking things back and they're downloading a lot of the information that happened on the road, and really looking to make the whole experience better, safer, and more ubiquitous throughout the environment. So all of these advanced type computing need advanced systems in order to do it, and our products allow you to, as our slogan says, any density, any hardware, any density, anywhere. And we really live behind that and help people deploy what they need, when they need it, where they need it.
So along those lines, we've talked about the impact it has on a traditional data center where you deploy AI. We've talked about how it's not just in the data center, it's at the edge, it's on premise, it is in some facilities. For customers that are looking to the benefits AI, Tony, one of the things I think we've talked about is that because of the unique capabilities AI brings to the table and the benefits that a company can derive, time to market has become a fairly big concern. And because of the unique IT requirements AI requires, getting a data center, a location, an edge environment ready to accept this type of technology can be challenging. And what is the cost of delaying time to market while you're trying to figure those things out? Can you talk to us about what speed of deployment of AI capabilities means for some of your customers?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these days, very few, if anybody, are engaging in AI development for esoteric reasons. I mean, you see it in maybe science and academia, doing things that obviously are leading edge, state of the art for highly exploratory nature. But when in that first question we explored, why are folks doubling down on this stuff? Well, they're doing it because it has a top and bottom line impact to their business, what I call bread and butter use cases, right? Whether it's trying to draw customers closer or save costs or outpace a competitor. So essentially, we see folks embracing the stuff with an expectation that they're going to get results from this investment. And the stark reality is that many organizations, unfortunately, that kick off an AI project believe that success starts and ends purely with hiring data science talent. So they go and onboard some very expensive resources that are important. You need data scientists, and these folks are not easy to find. They're hard to retain if you don't, give them the right tools and motivation, right? But essentially, they are kind of puzzled if 6-9 months later they don't have an AI application running in production. And too often than not, that's related to the fact that AI is not like conventional enterprise software. The people developing it do not necessarily follow normal IT DevOps kind of rigor. And essentially, what this is doing is it's preventing enterprises from, for instance, shaving a few points off of their inventory levels, right? Improving forecast accuracy, or it's costing them potentially hundreds of millions of dollars in an industrial site inspection costs because they're not able to put drones into action as soon as they'd like to. So, for our customers, there's a very real consequence with not being able to get AI models shipped out the door or deployed in production. And so, that's why we spend a lot of time looking at every facet of the AI development workflow with our customers, right from the initial concept to the deployed application in production. And we think of the deployment end of this as part and parcel with that. So if they need to wait on a data center build, or finding capital dollars to upgrade their data center, that could be a non-starter for many of our customers, and it's going to elongate the ROI of their AI investment or could kill it altogether. So when we look at the solutions that we're talking today, it's a major, equalizer in terms of letting them take this incredible innovation and deploy it anywhere. No longer do they have to worry. If they don't have a data center optimized for the unique demands of AI infrastructure, great. ScaleMatrix is a qualified DGX ready data center partner for us, and they can use those facilities to host our DGX infrastructure. And with DDC cabinet technology, they don't even need a quote unquote data center. They can take our solutions and deploy them literally anywhere they got a flat surface, and that as well is a great accelerant for shortening project timeline and actually reaping that ROI that I spoke of.
Tony, we're coming up at 1:45 Eastern, so coming down the last 15 minutes. I just wanted to, we have the results of one final poll. And audience members, any questions? We had some really good questions early on. Keep the questions coming. So Tony, back to you. I don't know if you want to push this poll now, or but we're coming up on the final 15 minutes.
Yeah, let's just close that last point out that Tony from NVIDIA was talking about, right? We've got, timing becomes a critical element. Tony mentioned that sometimes the data science teams that are creating some of these solutions don't have the same rigor as more traditional IT folks. And so you find that, hey, there's a demand, the business need requires it, and we go and buy some infrastructures. We end up with customers whose existing data centers teams haven't been consulted. So they very quickly realize that maybe we don't have the density or the cooling capability to support this AI infrastructure, or they're trying to ship it out to an edge location that really is challenged around trying to deliver those things. So the world that Gavin and I live in oftentimes are responding to customers who have decided to make an investment in AI and move forward with a deployment only to realize that the data center can't support it. And so one of our things that we really love is that with DDC technology in our data centers, we can either land that infrastructure for customers today or ship them cabinets that can be plugged into an existing raised floor data center in days or hours instead of weeks and months, so that AI infrastructure can be put into use. And that's a really fun part of our job today, using the Swiss Army knife of DDC to be able to modernize an existing site, go out to an edge and drop a full data center capacity platform into a market where there wasn't a data center before. And that's something that we love to have lots of time to fix things, but we have a lot of customers coming to us these days saying that time is important, and we're trying to solve and help for that. If you want to put that last survey question back up, we can dive into that for just a moment. So we talked a little bit about if you could modernize an existing on-premise data center to extend that investment, would it play a larger part of your IT strategy? And I'll certainly start by kicking that off. Yes and unsure, it's a very big piece. Again, no, being a very, very small group of that. I think that's telling, and it's accurate to where the things are going in the industry. Many traditional data centers that exist today were built to kind of one size fits all, 200 watt per square feet, 300 watt per square feet. And as you've heard from Dave Driggers and Stephen from Lambda and Tony from NVIDIA, these variable density workloads are really what the future is going to look like. While the UPS and generator and chiller infrastructure may not currently support higher densities, our cabinet technology is a great tool for modernizing an existing data center. It's very, very cost effective to do so. You can deploy it right on an existing raised floor, or you can remove the raised floor and drop that technology into this data center. And what you're doing is revitalizing the site. You're increasing its energy efficiency and density capacity, and you're extending the investment life of all those assets that are still very, very useful from a generator and UPS capacity perspective, and you're getting more out of that investment while building yourself a nice long runway to be able to keep expanding IT infrastructure within your existing envelope. The conversations we're having with not just IT directors today, but with CIOs and CEOs about, hey, look, I have this on-premise asset, it's aging, how do I modernize it to make it part of my long-term strategy? DDC cabinet technology is one of the most flexible platforms for doing so. We've built it like a Swiss Army knife, where you've got a really wide water range, a very high density range, and plugs into just about any existing system out there in days or hours. So we want to make sure customers are aware of that. And Tony or Gavin, if you want to talk a little bit about how on-premise deployments are helping customers as they're deploying AI technologies, we'd love to hear back from you guys as well. Gavin, you want to kick us off?
Sure. Like you said, Chris, we often go in and see a hodgepodge of what I refer to as Band-Aid solutions in current data centers, where they've had to increase from a rack density of 5 or 6 kW for what the site was built for, and they've got every type of technology imaginable on the data center floor. And we can go in and put a couple of cabinets in, knowing that we're just going to continue to help them reutilize the existing floor space and make a much more usable environment for them. And they can continue to increase density without having to worry about stranded assets across the data center. And the simplicity of what we can do, I think, is really astonishing to people when they see that we've really taken that data center and put all of the capabilities of that into a single cabinet that really manages itself as well, thus the dynamic density portion of it. And so we're really helping people extend the life of their current data center footprint by ramping it up and being able to start small and then grow as their needs grow. And the other thing that I think we're seeing with AI deployments is somebody could put in a 20 kW rack a year ago thinking, oh, they'll never go that high because they're used to 5 kW racks. And then all of a sudden within 18 months, they got to go to 40. And then 18 months after that, they need to go to 60. And currently we have 85 kW in a single cabinet, and we don't think that we've hit the limit of what we can do with air cooling. And so we continue to work on our products in the lab. And it's really, as Tony said, there's a lot of things that you have to consider when doing an AI deployment. There's the cultural, the different types of skill sets that you need, how you treat information within your organization. All that is complex enough. Leave the complexity of the data center to folks like us, and we'll help you extend the life of your current data center, get you the right edge data center deployments that you need to deal with the data where it's best dealt with, at the source, and continue to work with you to really see the benefits of your AI deployment.
Hey, Tony,
Yes.
just a little twist on that question, right? You think with AI infrastructure, oftentimes people are doing some pretty advanced stuff. They may be creating, data sets that are part of their intellectual property. They may be solving, some very, very big problems. And so sometimes they want to keep that infrastructure close to home, right, in an on-premise data center. So as we've talked here in the last 5 minutes about modernizing existing site to be able to deal with AI and help extend the existing investment in that facility, I imagine that's going to be pretty important to some of your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of the perfect third option, if you will, right? If you think about, okay, folks who would have either leaned into cloud and said it's cloud first or cloud only, or folks who would have said, it's got to be on-prem, this actually probably gives them a better alternative to having to be constrained into the data center dilemma, if that's their dilemma, right? Being able to now take this kind of technology with the DDC cabinets and literally land it anywhere where they have electricity and a flat floor. I think that's a huge game changer, because many of our customers, as I was mentioning before, need to park this kind of infrastructure right next to their data lake. And this is, oftentimes a perfect way to do it.
Great. Brian, how are we looking for questions?
We haven't had any questions come in actually, we just had a question come in. Just came in. One of the viewers is asking this question. If you have a customer opportunity for the DDC technology, is there an email address? So that's basically it. They're asking how to get in contact with you. If you have a customer opportunity for the DDC technology, is there an email address for additional information? So that's the only one I see so far.
Yeah, absolutely. we have sales at ddc-cabtech.com set up, or you just go to ddc-cabtech.com, the website, and fill out one of the sales forms there. We'd be happy to get back to you.
Okay.
Great. So
audience,
if
final
we got
questions, we're winding down here for the next couple of minutes. So audience, Tony Packaday, any questions for Tony? Send them over now. We'll try to get them in.
Yeah, and as we're closing up shop here, maybe we can kind of close around the thoughts about, we talked about this AI Anywhere initiative. It's a relationship that involves NVIDIA, a number of their qualified partners for selling DGX, and a variety of different storage partners who help deliver, kind of appliance-like solutions that we then combine with DDC so that they can easily be deployed in your own existing data center or out at the edge in a very economical and cost-effective way. We think that by taking AI capabilities and pushing them into everyone's hands, democratizing that capability, we bring everybody kind of up as we do it. Tony, if you'd like to talk just a little bit about that effort, I know you're pretty passionate about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really pleased with the partnership here and how we're democratizing AI infrastructure. I think there's a lot that customers can glean from today's conversation around how they can actually speed the ROI of their AI investments. They can land the kind of next generation data center technology, AI computing technology that they know they need to build innovative applications without having to be constrained with traditional deployment approaches. So I see, a lot of opportunity on the horizon, especially as we collaborate in this space to help organizations basically, enable their business transformation and essentially fuel what's next, and obviously position themselves for a better future coming through this situation.
Yeah, we find that too. As I mentioned at the very beginning of our session, one of the most fun things we're doing together under this AI Anywhere initiative is, looking at all these varied use cases where people are deploying AI, solving some of the really hard challenges they have around data center capacity, data center at the edge, management of those remote locations and data center sprawl that's happening by using some of our DCIM software. The use cases are never ending, and by providing this kind of any hardware, any density, anywhere platform of data center technologies, we're basically able to help just about any customer out there achieve those goals more cost effectively and with as little hassle and overhead as possible. And I hope the listening audience today got a lot out of that. We appreciate being part of it. And Brian, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Chris Orlando, CEO, co-founder, ScaleMatrix, chairman and co-founder at DDC Cabinet Technology. Fantastic job with our two sessions today. Coming up on 1:57 Eastern Time, 10:57 a.m. Pacific Time. Our sponsor today is ScaleMatrix. ScaleMatrix delivering variable density colocation, high-performance cloud, data protection, professional support services from specialized data centers leveraging the future-proof dynamic density control cabinet platform. With rack density and power efficiency impacting overall IT costs, ScaleMatrix next-generation data centers enable the company to deliver aggressively priced, highly differentiated services which help you as a customer compete in today's crowded marketplace. ScaleMatrix clients get a competitive advantage by leveraging innovative technology platforms and services. ScaleMatrix goal is to help you scale your business with cutting-edge facilities, scalable hosting platforms, and always on 24/7, 365 US-based client support, which is always there when you need it. Website, ScaleMatrix.com. Again, ScaleMatrix.com. So we're going to wind this down today. Sponsors, ScaleMatrix, DDC Cabinet Technology. Participating sponsor, NVIDIA. Very grateful for our panelists and their time to today's webinar. And we will conclude now. We appreciate everyone's time and attention. This CAPRE, Scaling for the Future, how advanced computing demands a new approach to data center design. CAPRE, that's our company, integrated media, marketing, research, and consulting solutions for the future of commercial real estate. Website, CAPREmedia.com. You can find us on LinkedIn. We've been doing this for over 10 years now, and there's a lot we can do to help your business. So Chris, Gavin, and Tony, we'd like to sign off. So thank you. Chris, you get the final 30 seconds if you wish.
Certainly. I appreciate everybody joining us today. I hope that what we provided to inspire some new thoughts, maybe perhaps changes your view of how the data center is, what it is, and what it's going to look like in the future. If you are interested in any way in modernizing an existing facility, utilizing some of our advanced data centers around the U.S., or exploring edge solutions with ourselves or our partners at NVIDIA, or through any of our distribution partners like the folks at Lambda or Cirrascale Cloud, we would love to help you use technology to create a more competitive advantage for your company. We're here to help. The websites are available. Thank you so much for your time today. Happy holidays, and everybody be safe out there.
All right, Chris Orlando, thank you very much. To our audience, we thank you. We'll see you soon. ScaleMatrix, ScaleMatrix.com, CAPREmedia.com, our company. Have a good afternoon. We're going to see you. We have a couple other webinars coming up this week, and we'll see you soon. Stay healthy, and good luck, everyone.
Cheers.
I know.